This is the Nikon Z35mm f1.2s, one of Nikon's fast f1.2 primes and one of the best lenses I've ever used. Nikon sent this lens to me to review, and the first couple of weeks of using it, I've taken a ton of photos to test it out so I can give you guys my first impression. Image quality is where this lens excels at. And to be fair, this is an S-line lens and one of 3 f1.2 lenses that Nikon offers. So on paper, this should be one of Nikon's best lenses optically, so how do the photos look? Well, to no one's surprise, this lens is amazing. And the first thing that stands out is the aperture. Having a 35mm at f1.2 is a combination that comes out with some very unique images, as f1.2 is an incredibly bright aperture and is great for getting a shallow depth of field even at 35mm, and is perfect in low light situations to get cleaner photos with more detail and less grain. When it comes to the depth of field, we're getting plenty of separation from the background. And what surprised me most is that even when my subject is a smaller part of the frame, we can still get separation from the background. A great example of this is a shoot that I did a couple of days ago with my brother and his girlfriend for their senior photos. I took photos of both of them where they're a small part of the frame with the city hall in the background. And when shooting these images at f1.2, you can see that there's a natural fall off from the subject to the building in the background. This helps my main subject stand out and makes them the center of attention versus being overwhelmed by the building. It's a subtle part of the composition that helps to keep the attention on the main subject versus the surrounding areas. And especially when I get close to my subject at f1.2, we get plenty of background blur that you'd expect out of an f1.2 lens while still getting lots of surrounding elements in the frame since it's at 35mm. Having that f1.2 aperture gives life to the images that even a stop down wouldn't be able to do. Because I had a 35mm f2 at some point, and there were times often where I was taking photos with the lens and the images felt kind of flat. But having the f1.2 aperture adds the separation needed to make the images feel like they have pop and depth to them. What's interesting about shooting the 35mm at f1.2 is that even when shooting group photos with a couple of people in it, you can still get away with shooting at f1.2 if the people are at a decent distance away. Even at f1.2, you still get a pretty decent plane of focus, and I would think this is because 35mm is still relatively wide. This is really nice for still getting background blur without feeling like you need to compromise by stopping down in order to get everyone in focus. It's especially made capturing low light group photos feel really easy in particular, as I can get images with plenty of detail since I'm shooting at f1.2 while getting everyone in focus. And just to touch on the 35mm focal length itself, it's a focal length that I've come to really enjoy when using this lens. 35mm is more than wide enough to capture a decent amount of the environment into the frame, especially when shooting portraits. I feel like I have enough breathing room to have 1 or 2 main subjects that I can add other elements of the environment with. The compositions feel very full and dynamic at 35mm. When shooting run and gun in particular, I feel like the focal length can capture relatively wide city or landscapes, but won't be able to get absolutely everything into the frame. 35mm when shooting wider scenes is nice for focusing on that one subject and building your composition around it. You'll have to be smart about how you set up your compositions. And 35mm is a unique focal length, as it's in between a standard and wide focal, but it should be good for majority of run and gun, events, or even portraiture. One aspect about this lens that surprised me is just how close I can get to my subject. Like this photo I captured of this bee. If you took a look at this photo, I doubt you'd be able to guess that this was shot on a 35mm f1.2. Because just look at how close I was able to get to the bee. Especially at 35mm, I was maybe a foot away from it. At a 1:1.2 reproduction ratio, we're able to get close and capture finer detail type of shots as a result. Normally close focus is where a lens like an f1.2 lens would struggle, but this just isn't the case with the 35mm. Even though you can grab focus when close up, I will say that it is difficult to get focus that close, especially at f1.2, simply because the plane of focus becomes very shallow and makes it difficult to cleanly get focus. And when shooting action type of images, this is where you'll tend to struggle at with this lens. And I definitely would not recommend shooting at f1.2 in action type of scenarios just because it's so difficult to grab focus. And especially when using 3D tracking, the camera will absolutely struggle when it comes to getting focus on your subject. But overall, this lens has stunning image quality, and yet again, one of the best lenses I've ever held. We get stupid sharp images in the center and throughout the rest of the frame, no matter what aperture you're using. The sharpness on this lens definitely exceeds the 24 megapixel sensors of both the Z6 III and the Z5 II that I've been testing recently. And so I think this lens would definitely go best with something like a 45 megapixel camera like the Z8 or Z7 II. The details are endless and allows you to crop without worrying about how the images will look. And despite shooting at f1.2, we still get plenty of detail when shooting portraits because that plane of focus is pretty forgiving. IQ is definitely something I will need to test more when it comes to this lens, but so far I've been really liking what I've been seeing and will most likely end up as one of the best lenses I've ever used. But for now, let's take a look at the 35mm Ergonomics. The first thing that you'll notice when using this lens is just how big it is. Usually 35mm isn't a lens you'd think to be a huge lens, but this lens definitely is, and it's probably because of that f1.2 aperture. When using the lens with the Z5 II, it definitely felt quite lens heavy. And despite being more lens heavy, the lens felt balanced as the weight was distributed very well throughout the lens. So despite the lens being heavy, it didn't make the lens feel unwieldy. It'd be the kind of lens where if you're gonna bring it out on kind of a day trip, it'd be the only lens that you're bringing with you because of its size and weight. When it comes to the weight, the lens comes in at 1,060 grams, which is bigger than the 24-70 and definitely heavier than the Z6 III, which is why using it on a smaller full frame body makes the setup feel quite lens heavy. I really like that the lens has a control ring on it, as it's pretty solid when shooting run and gun in particular. I have it set to exposure compensation and will turn the ring to adjust the exposure to quickly get the proper exposure. The lens also has two more function buttons and a manual focus ring that feels nice to turn while taking up majority of the lens's barrel. And with an all metal build, it's not hard to imagine this lens standing the test of time. It's built very well and feels really nice when holding it in my hand. How I've been carrying it lately is with my Peak Design 3-liter sling, which I found is the perfect bag to use when using this lens. It's a little tight with the Z5 II, but it does fit. Having this setup is perfect as I can throw it in a 3-liter sling and use it as the one lens setup when walking around. And the last important point for me is that it's got an 82mm filter thread, which is perfect for the Nikon Z lens ecosystem, since most of the professional grade lenses are 82mm and under. All of my filters are personally 82mm, which means I won't need a step-up ring in order to use it with the 35mm. But with that being said, there are final thoughts that I want to leave you with when it comes to this lens. The 35mm f1.2 is a stunning lens from Nikon. Being at 35mm and f1.2 is a great combination for both capturing plenty of the subject into the frame while leaving enough room to add other elements in as well. It's been a great, fast lens that is perfect for portraiture and run and gun photography as well, and has helped me come out with some amazing images. It almost feels like one of the most versatile fast prime lenses that you can grab, as it can do so much when it comes to composition and how you can frame your subjects. Especially when that subject is farther away, you'll still get plenty of separation from the background. When thinking about what I would actually get from my kit, I would probably choose the 35mm over the 50 and 85mm f1.2 simply because it's more versatile. I feel like there's just more variety in compositions that you can capture, and I think the 35mm benefits the most relative to the 50 and 85mm when it comes to being at f1.2. But that's just me personally. I still want to test out the image quality a bit more with this lens and throw it into different scenarios for sure. But so far from what I've seen, I have really enjoyed this lens's image quality, as we're getting plenty of sharp images that have plenty of pop all around. I also want to test it for video, because I think video is an area this lens will do well in for talking heads in particular, where the camera isn't moving. But until then, I'm just going to keep using the lens and see how I like it moving forward. I just want to give a quick shout out though to Nikon, as they sent me this lens and the Z5 II to review for you guys. But anyways, that's pretty much it for me in this video. What do you think about the 35mm f1.2? Is this a lens that you're excited to see more content about? Or is it something that you would add to your bag? Let me know down in the comment section down below. Anyways, thank you so much for experiencing the world with me today. I'll catch you guys in the next one.